here we go.
Joe Budden fires
Roy
live
that nigga's
on his podcast.
Yo, bro.
That nigga is
your
kind of
perspective on that because this
Did
is
you
your
watch
boy.
him live?
I feel like there was some hoe ass shit.
It was
and I almost was started watching stuff until he did that.
Yeah, I seen her, bro. Okay. I'm
gonna say this about it because I do believe there's really three sides of every story. But in this case, there's two. We're just talking about Joe. All right, so Joe's perspective is abiding by the contract. Supposedly, in his words, you can't speak about the details of the contract.
Yes.
Which is not false. That actually is true.
That was
you
facts.
aren't allowed to speak about certain things in the contract. You're not allowed to have the contract and show people the terms of the contract. Mm-hmm. So I get that. Rory and Maul on their side, they just want to know what is coming in. For instance, you know how many hours you worked for each pay period, right? And you can log those things so that you know what you're going to get paid for each check.
Okay.
Now,
go ahead.
So with that being said, my only issue is that this was handled publicly to shame the other party.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If you're a brother, like this is a brotherhood right here.
Yeah, right.
Is it though?
When we discussed the business that we discussed, it was all in house, and we still did a show that Friday.
Yep, keep it playing.
And no one even knows that we had it.
Almost falling down. DeeJay had got beat up and all that shit. Yeah, nobody knows that. I'm sorry.
No one knows that we had that dispute. So my issue is if let's say for instance, I'm in Joe Budden's shoes. Yes, I know the terms of the contract. But if I'm working with my brothers,
you gonna let them know what's up.
And they just want to know the most minuscule amount of information so that they know the money that they will be receiving.
Yeah, it was all about the account, right?
Right.
So let me ask y'all this though, keeping it 1,000. Can y'all truly say y'all surprised though from Joe Budden?
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not.
Only because
I'm not surprised. But when you're going on your platform and you're saying, "Oh, I'm here with my nearest and dearest friends," and you're calling them your brothers, and you know y'all went through this, that, and the third. You know, when the situation that ministry was handled like that is disappointing to me. I know Joe's personality. Go ahead.
I watched the. Okay, so because I subscribe to Joe Budden, and I have their Patreon, and I subscribe to Rory and Maul's new shit too. Because I fuck with Maul. Either, no matter what, I fuck with Joe, I fuck with Maul, I fuck with Rory. I fuck with them all together because that pod was shit. But it is what it is. So I watched that. I watched the initial podcast where he fired him and all that other bullshit, which I thought was weak as fuck. Because one, you're saying that about your boy supposedly, and you're saying it to a room of niggas that have nothing to do with it, and you're not saying it to the man who you're supposed to be saying it to in the first place. I watched Rory and Maul's entire interview of them together and them explaining the situation where they fucked up on some things as well, but I understand a lot of the undertone of the situation now because of them, which I knew that was going to be the situation because Maul always keeps it real anyway. So I knew he was going to say at least the truth of what was the situation was.
Right.
And then I watched the most recent podcast that Joe just put out where he responded to that, as well as the whole Olivia Dope shit too, which is another situation.
Right.
But so what I got from it, the whole underlying issue seemed to be that this nigga Rory asked for the information. So apparently they have a percentage-based contract,
right?
Which means if y'all was the podcast, each of y'all would have 20%. So you split it 5%, each of y'all 20%. No matter what the podcast makes, The profit gets split 20%. Period. Whether
but you have
whether
to-
a sponsorship comes in.
Well, hold on. That does not include visual, the YouTube.
Exactly. So there was other
20,
shit.
15. No.
So, but it didn't include the YouTube,
Right.
but they had access to all the videos, so
Right.
they could make their own YouTube if they wanted to.
Right.
So the issue came when everybody knows Rory got audited, okay, by the FBI, by federally he got audited.
Right.
So they was going through all this nigga shit. So this nigga had his lawyers going over the contracts and shit, and he wanted to know how much they were making. Supposedly Joe had a accounting company who sent over a spreadsheet or whatever, and he sent it to Rory and Mal. Rory's lawyers looked at it and said that there was like $400,000 error in there or whatever.
That's a lot.
So they asked Joe, "Hey,
Let me see that.
what the fuck is going on? Because all these deals are coming by and you're not accepting them, this and that, whatever." And then supposedly now we got the Cash App deal, whatever. We want to know how much money we're making. That way we know how much we're supposed to have.
Right.
And apparently Joe took that the wrong way because they were saying that there was a mistake. Joe took it as if, oh, they're counting my pockets, blah, 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 whatever. So apparently there was an issue that, there's all these issues that they just let go. They didn't address the whole time. And then, as you can see, Joe was like, "Rory, don't come to the pod the next day," because this nigga was getting aggravated or whatever. And when he told him that, Maul was like, "Well, you can't just tell." That would be like you telling Brian or somebody or Eric, "Don't come to the pod on Friday."
Yeah, right. Definitely. I mean,
Y'all can't make that decision. You can't make that decision. Y'all make that decision together, right? So at the end of the day,
Then Ma was like,
me,
he didn't want to do it.
but that's the thing is, Joe's ego is like, well, this is my podcast. This is my name. It's my IPO. All of it is mine. It says the Joe Budden podcast. But Rory and Maul, at the end of the day, it's like
They made that show as well.
the past 8 years.
Yeah.
Y'all, it's been y'all. It's been the Joe Budden podcast. New Rory and Maul.
Right.
Parts 2. Shit, it's all of y'all. Like, to say that it's just your pod
that was just disrespectful.
is
That's why
disrespectful. But he's right. At the end of the day, he makes the decisions because it is his podcast.
Yeah.
That's why you just can't give some niggas the power. You know what I
He
mean?
wasn't
But
wrong.
that's the thing
He wasn't
about it.
wrong.
Why am I showing y'all the books?
He was right in
some
what he
niggas just can't
said,
handle
but
power.
to go out publicly.
Yeah, it should have been some.
You know what I'm saying?
It
Because
should have
now,
just been in the room shit.
When
Even
even about the
but-
contract shit too, I want to speak on the contract stuff. There was a slaughterhouse incident that with
The crooked
Crooked
eye,
Eye and
yeah.
Royce now,
Yeah.
saying that like Joe Budden didn't give a fuck about contracts.
Yeah, Joe has said
He
it
breached
multiple
multiple
times. He don't
contracts.
care about.
Yeah, he
contracts.
breached multiple contracts. So for him to say, "Oh, I couldn't talk about it," nigga, you been doing that. Like,
Yeah.
you could have told your bros what's the deal.
And that's
That's
my
what I'm
issue
saying, man.
because
That was weak.
it's like yes, it's a contract, but sometimes like there's unwritten rules.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like even if we have a contract, it's like this my brother. I gotta make sure he eating. Like I gotta make sure he eating, she eating.
Oh, that too. Yeah,
Like,
I'll talk about that next.
The fact that like you couldn't even like give them the most minuscule information and it blew up that big, like I don't know, that's just weird to me.
This is my problem I always had with Joe Budden. He just feel like he's
impulsive.
God. Even when he was on Everyday Struggle, he used to always just he used to talk like he's just bigger than the show. Which
I
I
agree.
get. You know, on the Joe
I kinda
Budden
agree with him
on
on
Joe
that.
Budden podcast, it's your podcast. But you know what I'm saying, you have your co-host. Don't talk above them. That's the same problem I had on First Things First when Chris Carter was on there. Like, don't talk above your co-host. Like, y'all co-hosts. Like, if I'm sitting over here talking like, yeah, I'm gonna talk over y'all and I'm gonna get my point across every time. Like, that's not a good show to
I like the way
me.
he
That's
looked
not
at him.
that's
I
not
I
how.
agree with you, but I also see where his ego stems from because at the same time he kind of had the ability to do that because look at the show. At the time, yeah, the show was great, but Everyday Struggle wasn't doing the amount of views that Joe's podcast was doing every week by itself.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, of course he's gonna
he's
be
a
up there like, well, nigga, y'all should be paying me because I'm the highest
let's
nigga
bring
up
it
here.
to
right?
he's a good enough like his opinion. People gonna want to hear about it, so you don't have to talk above like you can talk to somebody, y'all can have a conversation without you talking above.
Oh, but he's definitely an arrogant.
I'm gonna say that's his I agree with you, but that's what makes his personality. That's because that's kind of my issue with Stephen A. too. Like, like how he kind of like belittles Max, even when Max got a good point. You know what I'm saying?
Because he
like makes a big deal and trying to make like Max. What Max said is like.
But that's the appeal of the show too.
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of what Joe
different. But this is different. Yeah. I feel like, and if I'm not mistaken, we probably looked this up as well. The show numbers went up after Roy and Mal was featured on there like permanently, right? If I'm not mistaken.
You said what?
Like after Mal and Roy was on there permanently.
Oh yes,
the numbers went up.
The numbers continually, gradually went. The show got better and better every year as these three came into their own. Like, I would say after like 2 or 3 years of just the three of them together, that's when it got solidified, and then like the past 3 or 4 years, it just like blew up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it went wrong where when Rory and Mal didn't come in, they should have just disbanded the Joe Budden podcast. And if they weren't going to come back, they should have just done with it. And if he was going to do a different podcast, he should have named it something different. I think it got disrespectful when he was like, okay, y'all do that. They should have handled the business of the Joe Budden podcast. And then it got funky when this nigga got back on screen with two other niggas that had nothing to do with it. He was talking about the shit to them.
Yeah, that shit was disrespectful.
That's what I'm saying.
That was the whole shit.
Why are y'all even talking about? If the shit ain't finished, if the shit ain't squashed, then like deal with that outside of it. But he's like, oh, well, we gotta be transparent. Okay, well then
you should have been that with your boys,
and then start this.
Yeah, because
like why
exactly because
I'm trying to replace them.
And you could see on the episode, the first episode, Rory and Mal came back. The whole episode was just awkward because it was like you could just tell Mal was like this is just fake shit to me. Like,
nothing.
The show was never gonna be the same after that.
And that's exactly like he said, because it was like they had a conversation before the show started, and then when the cameras turned on, the energy was all of a sudden different from Joe.
Right.
You see him the whole time. He like as if he trying to put them on the spot.
Right.
No, you always over here.
Yeah, I think if they weren't going to come back, bro, they should have ended it, and then the new Joe with Ice and Itch, that could have been a totally different thing.
Yeah.
But to replace it and try and play it off as if, oh well, these niggas just didn't feel like coming in. Like, no, nigga, like y'all got issues and y'all don't want to work it out, so they not coming in to work.
He didn't. They said it could have worked out in a week.
Exactly.
That's what he said. Like we could have just.
But that's like I said, that's Joe's ego, bro.
Yeah, right.
But they had run-ins before this, like when they were talking about like the 6-hour argument they had.
Yeah.
Contract disputes always happen. It's always gonna be like when it comes to money, how much the person should be getting or this and that. It's always gonna be a difference of opinion. It's just all about how you handle it.
Yeah.
But that shows the strength of actual friendship, like what's really important. I'm gonna keep it above. Like if we ever get to that point and y'all like that, I'm just gonna leave because it wasn't real. If we can't come to agreement on shit like that, this wasn't real. I'm telling you, I would just leave automatically.
I'm with you on that.
That would show me people's real character. I'm keeping it in the book.
Because I mean, by then I'm already be established.
Yeah,
so I don't need y'all niggas. You know what I'm saying? I'm always gonna lock and shit.
He laughing, but on a serious note, everybody should be able to branch off and like be set. That's the goal.
What's going on, everybody? Behind the scenes, Lyndon here. Just wanted to stop in and tell you guys thank you for tuning in to another clip or new episode of the 5% Podcast. Make sure you drop a like down below and leave a comment. Let us know how you think we're doing or what topics you want us to discuss. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at the 5% Podcast, as well as like and follow on Facebook for weekly live streams every Friday at 8:30 p.m. See you next time.